Motorcycle Adventure Dirt Bike TV, supported proudly by Adventure Spec in the UK, Rally Raid Products, Giant Loop in the United States, Adventure Moto in Australia, Pirelli Tyres, Motul Oils, RK Chains and Australian Adventure Bike Magazine.
This video focuses on my first experiences riding with the newly fitted 25 litre Safari tank and testing of the latest generation of open cartridge compression fork internals from Rally Raid Products UK. I'll also be fitting some Rally Raid Products bar risers, and then after all that work, time for a blast in the forest with my good mate Alex. I'll be riding my 2012 KTM 690 Adventure that I rode from London to Sydney. Finally, we'll wrap up with the subscriber question and answer segment that's proving really popular. Well, it's time to land this baby and get on with the show. Finally, back out on the Yamaha T700. It's great to be back on this bike. It's funny, I've been spending a lot of time on the Husky 701 and a whole range of test bikes and just haven't had time to enjoy this bike, so I've ignored it for about a few months now. The first thing that hit me when I pushed it out of the garage was the weight difference between this and the 701. There's probably about 60 kilograms in it, and what made it heavier today was I've got the Safari fuel tank on and that's full to the brim. And one of the jobs today is to see how much fuel range I get with the Safari tank and see how the fuel gauge works, because the fuel gauge is inside the Safari tank, so I want to see how that equates in real time and in the real world in terms of how many kilometres before the first bar goes and how many kilometres before the second bar goes. So that'll be interesting as well. Also got some new Rally Raid open cartridge internals for the compression side of the suspension for the forks, and I'm testing that for John Mitchinson of Rally Raid Products in the UK, and so we'll do some slow-mo with that later on and just get a feel of that, send it over a few jumps and bumps and all sorts of stuff. So we're coming off Kulnura Hill at the moment and we're heading down into the Wyong Valley and just doing a bit of tar at the moment just to try to soak up some miles, and then we'll head in and do a bit of the rough stuff. One of the things I'm concerned about is, with this extra weight, do I need to change the fork springs in the bike? And I think I've answered that before I even contemplated too much, and my default position is no. I'm not going to fill this bike to the brim very often. It's going to be for a purpose, and most of the time I'll keep 18 or 20 litres in it, and that'll do me. That's a normal range. So when I got on the bike full this morning, it was very top heavy. It felt very top heavy, and I thought to myself, gee, I wouldn't like to be in the dirt, in some challenging dirt that is, with the bike that full of fuel. Yeah, the engine on this bike is tall and the reciprocating mass on this bike is high in the frame, and just dumping a whole lot of weight above that engine certainly affects the handling. Having said that, the manners of the bike on the tar have been good. I can't complain about it, but I am aware of that extra weight between my legs, and it's not problematic on this sort of stuff, but in the dirt it'll be interesting to see how I go. But again, once I get to the dirt, I'll be down 5 litres. So you know, that's a bit of weight taken off, because that'll be the top half of this weight here on the tank. Yeah, when I'm referring to the top half of the tank, I mean this piece here. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of volume and hence weight in this top part of the tank. And, you know, there's probably a couple of litres in that at least. And that's a long distance from the road, so it's quite high and really raises the centre of gravity of the bike. But as the tank empties, there's been an attempt by Safari to lower that centre of gravity, and what they've done is they've made these kind of bulbs out to the side, which are as low as the original tank or slightly lower. And then these bulbs, if you like, extend right down, right into here. And the actual tank comes right to here, which is quite surprising. But again, it's about lowering that centre of gravity with that extra fuel. But yeah, the first bit, yeah, it's sitting really tall. And then after that, you know, once you get to about, I don't know, my guess is, you know, 20, 23, 22 litres, the weight then is significantly lower, because it comes right through to the front of the bike, right through here. Look at that.
Right, so that's the tank.
Wow.
Let's quickly go back to some footage when Clubby and I were fitting the tanks. It's clear that Safari have gone to a heap of effort to extend that volume low. Those horn-like extensions and bulbs to the tank keep much of the expanded volume below the height of the original tank. It consolidates my view that if I was riding challenging dirt conditions, I wouldn't put any more than about 20 litres in the tank. That way I get the benefit of added fuel range to around 400 k's, and I don't compromise the handling of the bike.
One of my favourite tracks into the forest, Murray's Run Road. The bike's done 185 kilometres. And we're still not off the full mark. The weight, you know, that really high weight that I was feeling on the road riding is dissipating now, and it's almost gone. And that's hardly surprising, because, you know, the bike's coming down to its normal weight of fuel. But boy, oh boy, did it feel top heavy when I left Sydney this morning. Fuel full. You know, it's fine on transport sections, but I don't think I'd like to be in it, you know, fuel full on a difficult trail. That amount of fuel sloshing about that high, it's just not very useful, I don't think. Now we've got the Rally Raid forks we're also testing here, and you know, this Murray's Run Road is great to kind of test out trail feel. There's occasional potholes, you know, a couple of inches deep that are sharp lips. It's got a bit of tar, a bit of dirt, and that trail feel, you know, the first 3 centimetres of travel on these forks is lovely. I'm hunting potholes just to suss it out, and I'm really impressed that, yeah, it's a bit forgiving right at the beginning. There's not a jolt into potholes. I haven't hit a really decent one, but I'm hunting for them. Here we go, back on the gravel. All right, let's hunt out some little potholes. There's one there. There's a couple. Seems counterintuitive hunting for potholes. There's one. 207 k's and still the fuel gauge is registering full. Assuming I'm doing roughly, say, 5 litres per 100 kilometres, my assumption is the tank is about 10 litres down now. So it's got about 14 litres, carrying 14 litres now. this new version of the compression open cartridge that Rally Raid have given me is very impressive. This is the one that's gone into production now and is available. Yeah, it gives good feel, soaks up the little stuff. We haven't tried anything really big yet. I've certainly come to the conclusion that I wouldn't raise the spring rates in the forks to cater for the extra fuel that I'm carrying. And I think I'd just take it a bit easier. And this is where it can catch you out. You really need ABS off on these. On other bikes you can do that on the fly now. A little bit irritating, but hey, it's nice to be back on the Yamaha. Such a comfortable standing position. You just feel at one with the bike. I'm really happy with how that front suspension is coping with those little short, sharp things, undulations, corrugations, potholes, doing that really well. The rear shock on this bike is outstanding. That's the only way to describe it. And the front was being shown up by the rear shock before, but now, yeah, it's a much more balanced feel. $220 k's and still no movement on the fuel gauge.
You'll hear me regularly rabbiting on about trail feel, that first 3 or so centimetres of the suspension travel that soaks up all the small road imperfections. But if the suspension is too firm, over a long riding day, you'll feel like you're beaten up, and this hard suspension contributes to rider fatigue. On mile-munching adventure bikes, what I'm chasing is good trail feel, but also a capacity to take on whoops and the big unpredictable hits without bottoming out and maintaining control. Designing suspension to do both is a real challenge. The new compression internals are giving me that great trail feel, and as the trail gets progressively rougher, I'm getting progressively impressed with how the forks are absorbing that stuff.
See that? That was an erosion mound, and then followed up by a rise, a rocky rise, and suspension just soaked that up. You would expect the forks to bottom out on that in standard mode. It's either good, back's good.
Time to film a reasonable jump, one that exceeds the capability of the standard suspension and would certainly result in it falling through the stroke and bottoming out with a thud. The results surprise me. The open cartridge system made for a comfortable, controlled landing. It's apparent from the slow motion just how well this suspension performed. The trail continued to get rougher, with numerous opportunities to hit G-outs and get air, and other bits and pieces of the more extreme end of fast, rough stuff. Both forks and rear shock soaked up everything I threw at it. For my style of riding and the terrain I cover, these open cartridge forks absolutely nail it.
Off the mountain, 240 k's, and 240 k's, and the first bar of the fuel gauge has gone on. There you go, look at that. Finally, 240 kilometres. So at least we know the fuel gauge is working. Interesting when the next one drops. I guess what I've learned today is with this big tank, the benefit of it is that you can stick extra fuel in when you need it, but in the same breath, I mean, there's not many times when I'll need that much fuel. The good thing is though that there isn't too much of a penalty, if you like, for having the bigger capacity. I mean, it's a plastic tank, it's pretty light. I don't know the difference in tank weights, and maybe I should check that out. But what I noticed in the dirt then, when I was carrying probably about 10 litres, the bike handled really well. And in fact, I really liked the width of the tank when I was standing, and I could grip it with my knees. On the T700, you're kind of pretty far forward in the standing position when you're turning and jumping and everything. And yeah, it seemed to work well. 2 bars, 322 k's or 321.6. Oh, look at that, 378.5 kilometres, and I've still got 3 bars of fuel. Mate, I'll have to drive round and round the block about 500 times to get rid of this all. Anyway, that's a pretty successful range, but we'll keep working at it. As Clive Ward would say, it's pretty rare to see Dave on the tools. Tonight I'm fitting Rally Raid Products CNC bar extenders to my bike. Before we go on any further though, you've seen the review I've done on the Safari tank. I just noticed when I'm turning the bars, I'm just touching the Safari tank there with the bark busters. So when I do this job with the bar risers, I'll just move those bars a little bit forward. So get this done. Put that. Yeah, so that's something I thought we were, you know, Clubby and I, when we fitted the handlebars, you know, after we installed the Safari tank, I thought we'd been pretty vigilant to make sure that they didn't touch the tank, but on both sides there's a tiny little wear mark, and I'll show you that in a minute. And these should just come off. I'll put them forwards. Yeah. Oh, that's convenient. I like that. I don't know if Clive will be happy with my solution for getting these bar risers off. It's a 17mm little universal joint on the top, and I'm just coming up and under. I can hear Clive groaning as I do this. He'd probably say to me, you really need to take the top of the clamp off, and while you're there, inspect those steering head bearings. And I know another good colleague of mine, Greg Yeager, will be saying the same thing. Dave, if you're taking that off, you know, you really need to go and have a look at those steering head bearings. It's about time you saw my dodgy. Oh shit. You know what I just lost there? A washer. It went straight down. Oh, now one of the subscribers were asking about that light bar that I still haven't got on to fitting yet. It's a Steady ST3K 7.5 inch LED light bar with 6 LEDs. So that's the one that Clubby and I and Clive Ward have got. Now, just on that, while I'm on that, Clive said, whatever you do, don't listen to the numpties on the internet about how to connect that. It requires a relay and a harness, and for Australian conditions you've actually got to link it to your high beam switch. So it's just not a matter of, I've seen a couple of comments about how easy it is. Clive's view on that was it could set your bike on fire, but more on that later. Anyway, let's get back to the
the job at hand, and that's these bar risers. So this is the OEM bar riser I've just got off. Now this is the Rally Raid Products one, CNC machined. The OEM bar risers are higher than the standard Rally Raid, but what happens when you buy the Rally Raid Products bar risers, you get these different packers. So you can have a shorter bar rise, or what I'm going to do is put on these small packers, and that takes it up to the same height as standard. And if you want, there's a taller packer for taller riders, and that lifts the bar risers above OEM. Let's have a look. I'll just bring it across, and you can see the difference. So it raises it again. Washer, Washer, where are you? Never to be seen again. Probably end up in the engine sump oil. Okay, so these are the Rally Raid fork extenders, and they're asymmetrical, so you can actually move the bars further forward if you want. My view is to keep them where they are. And the other thing I'm doing, remember these are shorter, so I'm putting on these bar extenders, and they go like that and lock in. And then on top of that, you've got a washer. I had to go and find another washer, and another washer for this side. And then just drop them in. So that'll put my handlebars basically where they were before for me. The only difference for me, the only benefit for me is these bar risers are less likely to bend than the OEM ones. So I get my bloody great big multi-tool out again and nip these up. Oh come on, I can't lose another washer. Your blokes will be laughing your guts out. I tell you another thing that I strongly advise. I've had 2 Baileys and milk before I started this, and I really don't think that was the best thing I could have done in hindsight. Please God, I'm just praying to the almighty washer God as we speak, just to get that on. Everyone's been in this predicament. The trouble is the washers just go straight down beyond the bloody radiator. Oh, come on little doggy, hook up. We're hooked up. We're there. Alright. Now I should be able to just... To celebrate putting the bar extensions on, I thought I'd get into my more formal shirt. This is my Adventure Mite shirt. Concentrate or die. Available at Adventure Moto. Gotta love it. It's bloody brilliant. So, there are a number of different ways, now that we've got the bar extenders on, to finish off the job. The first one is the OEM parts, and we can just clamp the bars with them. Or we can go with a Rally Raid top mount bar, and that goes on the top there. The beauty of the Rally Raid top mount bar is that you can put a RAM mount on there, GPS mounts, a whole range of different mounts, and that gives you an opportunity then of setting up the bike with a really good dash that's really firmly done. But there's also another one, and this really adds flavour to the mix and gives you lots of alternatives. And this is a multi-mount. The multi-mount goes here. Same deal again, you can have RAM mounts on it, you can have GPS, Garmin mounts, a whole range of different mounts. So go to the Rally Raid site and have a look at those. What I prefer is to have my GPS mounted up here. There are a lot of people that say, oh, this bracket is too loose and it wobbles a bit. It's made to do that. It's flexible, it moves around. And some people have reinforcement on it. I've never bothered. I've ridden 10,000 Ks with my GPS there, and it's fantastic. So that's the way I do it. And then what I'm tempted to do is put my phone mount there. At the end of the day, when I'm riding adventure and I'm looking at a map and navigating, I want to keep my eyes as high and as far looking down the road as I can. The last thing I need is to be looking here. Having said that, Clubby, my good friend Clubby, puts a RAM mount on here and raises his GPS up a little bit higher, and that's how he does it. So I just wanted to finish off by saying lots of flexibility with the Rally Raid bar extender, and you've got these top mounts and this multi-mount. Yeah, so you can just see that little tiny indent there. Doesn't matter whether you had Rally Raid extenders or not, I've just moved the bars a little bit more forward so there's no touching the tank. But let's be clear, there was a mark there and a mark just there, tiny little mark where the bottom of the bark busters were touching.
Yes, I'm riding with Alex today. Haven't ridden with Alex for ages. He's on his BMW, what is it, 1200 GSA, 2017 model. And I'm back on my favourite, the 2012 KTM 690. For those new to the channel, this is the bike I rode from London to Sydney. And, you know, no traction control on this, no ABS on this. And it's nice to get back to basics and just have a bike that, you know, if you put input in, there's nothing between you and putting the input in. No microchip made by some little dweeb with a lab coat on. No 6 sensor traction control system, no nothing. It's just motorcycling, raw and natural. And I guess that's what makes this bike a keeper for me. It keeps you real. So I'm just putting this as an extra piece on the Safari Tank and Rally Raid Products video for a couple of reasons, but one is this bike, the 690, is carrying 26 litres of fuel, but in a very, very different way to the Safari Tank. It's in 4 separate fuel tanks, 2 at the front, 1 in the middle, and 1 at the back. And the other reason I thought I'd just give it to you is, you know, just to catch up with the sorts of riding I do, and if you like, provide you with a vlog. Alex is going the long way. Very interesting. You know, I started off with 26 litres on board today, and I'm probably down to about 23. But in this case, I can feel the fuel. Definitely extra weight in the bike, but it's spread all over the bike. So there's 2 front tanks, the middle tank and the rear tank, and that just makes the difference, just spreading it around. So I'm not saying this for any other reason than an observation on this bike. Loading it up with 26 litres is very different to the solution that Safari have come to with the T7. But again, there's lots of considerations to do that. Do I see the Safari as being inferior to other solutions? Not on your life. As I've said, it actually does the first 20 litres really good. And then, you know, if you've got easy transport, fill it to the 25. Oh. It's great. It's great getting out with Alex today. We haven't ridden together for ages. He's clipping along on his Beamer. Sliding out the back brake a little bit. Oh, it's great to get out. This is a decent ride in this. It's pretty humid, pretty warm. Certainly doing a bit of exercise. Whoop. Whoop. Oh. Oh. Whoa. Up. Down. Whoa. Down we go. So out with my good friend Alex on his BMW 1200. It's great to have Alex on board again. We haven't ridden for a while together, and we're doing a fairly testing day, I can tell you. And so I've brought out my beloved Keeper, the KTM 690, the 2012 model that I rode from London to Sydney. Now the reason I brought it out was because we've been testing that Safari tank, that 25 litre Safari tank for the T700, the Yamaha T700. And this is another way of storing exactly the same amount of fuel. There's 12 litres in the middle on this bike. There's these two front tanks that take it up to 21.5, and then there's a 4.5 litre tank in the rear. So the fuel, probably nearly the same at 26 litres, so 1 litre more than the Safari tank, but it puts the fuel much more lower, and it also compartmentalizes it. So when you're riding the bike fuel full, it doesn't feel as affected as the Safari tank. Having said that, for the Yamaha T7, the Safari tank is a great solution, and I've been impressed with it. I guess my key points are 400 kilometre range at 20 litres. There's not many places you need to go more than 400 kilometres range, but if you want to fill it up to the 25, all I'd advise is the first 100 k's are transport miles rather than difficult stuff, because that last 4 to 5 litres really starts to raise the centre of gravity of the bike. Oh, Alex is being very careful there. Come on, don't go. Oh, I did the same as him. I was watching him. Clearly he was being careful for a reason. Whoa. That was so funny. Watching. It's down off this rock shelf. I was watching you nosediving and I started nosediving. Whoa. Whoa. Whoa! Oh. We're out. Wow. Every time I get to this place, I go on a nostalgia journey. Probably 10 years ago with Darren Higginson when we were riding from London to Sydney. This was our final day. And I was on this bike. And I had to open this gate. It was the only gate from London to Sydney that I opened and had to go through on the bike. And I'm kind of happy, you know, that the 690 was a keeper, and yeah, I've certainly kept it. And today, you know, it's just great to get back on it again. It's going really well. You know, it's got great range, comfortable seat, brilliant foot pegs, no ABS, no traction control. Just simple. Great luggage carrying capacity, great suspension. It's just great. So I had a good day riding today, and I just hope you like this little addition at the rear of the video on the Safari tank. Kind of just gives you an idea of the sorts of riding we get up to. So I'll take you up over this rise. You can have a look for yourself. Here we go. This is the sunniest day we've had in a long time, I can tell you. Sliding out at the back. So this is the Wattigan Creek Road, and I'm heading east, and I just saw a four-wheel drive coming around. He should come around this bend any second. So Wattigan Creek Road's a good track I like, because it certainly turns into a track in a minute. But this takes you out and gets you out.
I'll finish up with the new question and answer segment that has proved popular with you all. For those unfamiliar with the Mad TV channel, select Community at the top of the channel page. And these posts provide information on what I'm up to and encourages the audience to interact and ask questions. The first one, GeoMac Grandad. I'm pondering the T700, 890 and Norden. My concern of the T7 is the difficulty of picking it up from a drop. I don't have a specific question, but looking forward to your ride and observations. What I see consistently, GeoMac, is people buying bikes that are too heavy for them, and it dominates them, and they genuinely get apprehensive when they come to an obstacle. My very strong view and strong advice is to pick something smaller, and there's lots of stuff there smaller. If you really want a big bike, then you've got to assure yourself you can pick it up, and if you can't, my tendency would be not to get it. Bob Drakeford, has your new upgraded cartridge front suspension been considered with the larger Safari tank extra weight? Do you think it will handle better? Thanks. Bob, this is a really interesting question, and I addressed some of this because I had the same concerns of you. and I address some of this in the video. My view is that after riding the bike now, I don't need heavier springs. But before the ride, I was absolutely convinced that I would. You know, when you consider that it's got 25 litres on board, what I have come to the conclusion about, though, is that I generally wouldn't fill the tank any more than about 20 litres. Occasionally, you know, for transport miles, I might fill it to 25. But if I knew I was getting into tough stuff, I wouldn't go over 20 litres. And then I'd just ride slower until I expended some of that weight. All right, next question. Raphael Kadrya Q. And I think I've totally stuffed up that surname, but I gave it my best, Raphael. When I was on the market for a new bike, I was considering a T7 or 701. Both bikes are quite similar in their purpose. I went with Husky because of the weight mostly. Dave, I wonder what your thoughts are about owning both of them. Are you planning to keep both for the long term? And if so, why? Cheers. Yeah, I am considering keeping them both for the long term. I love the T7 on the more open stuff, and I love the 701 when it gets tough and gnarly. And, you know, it's interesting. They're the same capacity, but I see one more as a tourer, and I see the other one more as the capacity to do extreme adventure. There's no doubt that 60 kilogram weight difference is huge and really makes a difference when you're in difficult stuff and you've got to maintain your balance. Bryce Hunkin, with the money you spent on the T700 and all the accessories, was it worth it? Or is there things you would still change or improve? Well, Bryce, after doing this ride, I'd have to say for the way I'm going to use my T700 that I've nailed it for me, for the purpose, for my riding style and where I ride and how I ride the bike. I think I've nailed it. Was it worth it? Yes. And most of the effort went into getting the suspension right. For my riding style, standard suspension just isn't up to scratch, be it front or rear. And, you know, you've seen my modifications on that if you've watched the videos. Oh, mate, if you had to ride from Melbourne to the Cape and return, had 3 weeks to do it, and was riding mainly gravel road, which bike would you choose and why? The easiest stuff, as I've said, T700. If you went through the Victorian High Country, through Billy Goat's Bluff Track or Haunted Stream Trail or something like that, then I'd be on the the 701 in a heartbeat. Adventure by Dawn. What is your top 3 most important mods for the bike? If that was what you could only do to it, and then because we all know you can never only do 3 top 5. Yeah, I can do it in top 3. Foot pegs, front suspension and rear suspension. Oh no. Foot peg, suspension, Barkbusters. They're the ones. I like big rally pegs with a big surface so you can comfortably stand for ages. Lovelissimo. How progressive does the new suspension feel over the old stuff? Remember, this is the second iteration of the fork internals for the compression side of the Rally Road products. Development of those forks. These forks have much better trail feel, and then the high speed and medium speed stuff, it's about the same. So basically what was lacking in the first iteration was the trail feel, or the plushness as people describe it, those first couple of centimetres of travel. So that's the difference between the two. Rally Raid now have emptied out that old stock and now have replaced it, and the new stock goes on market soon. But it is, like everything, Rally Raid are doing research and development, and it's just getting better and better. and this last version is brilliant. How progressive does the new suspension feel over the old stuff? I've answered that, so I've just repeated that. Adventure by Dawn. And do you feel that you need to change anything suspension-wise because of the new fuel tank? Look, we've just addressed that. I was thinking I would need a higher spring rates for the forks. My view is that I don't. Alan T, would the T7 make a good all-round bike to keep for years? Yes, it's a reliable bike. The engine is bulletproof. The handling's good. All I'd say is if you do more difficult terrain, that 60 kilograms extra weight compared to, say, a Husky 701 is significant. Christos Kalfas, what is the difference between new upgraded suspension and open cartridge you already had? Also, do you feel the extra weight or the feeling is the same, especially in very low speed? The suspension that I had before was open cartridge on the front and a PDS twin piston system on the rear from Rally Road. So it's a very sophisticated rear suspension, works absolutely brilliantly. So this is just another open cartridge system, and it's just got better, and this one has improved trail feel. Alan Hewling, I'm thinking of taking the factory crash guards off my bike to allow for installation of a different clutch lever, which will make clutch operation much softer and allow a wider friction zone. Do you think that keeping yours on your bike offer that much protection, or are your drops mostly absorbed by the bark busters? Look, my view on the engine protection is that that part of the engine and lower down around the water pump needs protection, and I have a plastic guard system on both crankcases. The water pump is particularly vulnerable on the Yamaha if you fall over, and I've actually seen someone very easily just punch a hole in the water pump simply by falling over. My understanding, and I can be corrected, the next version of the Tenere, the 2022 version, has had some modifications to that water pump in terms of where it is or what protection. Steve Corlett, do you think Yamaha will make a 900 Tenere? Not in a million years, Steve. I think what you're going to see is a number of different versions of the Tenere 700, and we're starting to see pictures of that now. Dave Bryan, buy T7, add protection tank suspension like you have. Would it have been better, easier to buy a 790 or 890R KTM? Personally, coming from a 1200 GS, no pesky electronics on the T7 would still tip the scales that way. Sideshow from Condobolin Hotel, police ride, alright, 2021. Hi Sideshow, how you going? Look, I keep coming back to it. I have those two bikes for a specific reason and purpose. The T700 is for more open stuff and mile munching, and the 701 is for more technical trails and harder trails. That 60 kilogram weight difference is enormous. Power characteristics are similar. Do you have any protection or reinforcement for the exhaust support? This is from Mario Lateo. Mario, I'm relying on the OEM hard pannier racks to give me that protection. Jay Bay, still on the original chain and sprockets? Yes, Jay. I'm coming up to 16,000 kilometres, and I'm surprised by how well the sprockets and chain are lasting. Okay, Michael Cox, current weight with all the mods and fueled. I have no idea, Michael, but when I go to Clive Ward's next time, I'm very interested in that question myself. There's a lot of stuff on my bike, like the center stand, the OEM center stand, the OEM pannier racks, the OEM crash guards, the bark busters. That's tens of kilograms of extra stuff. And then Imagine the Safari tank with 25 litres of fuel on. The bike, look at a guess, it'd have to be getting up around 250, 260 kilograms fuel full. And Muppet, do we get a sticker this year, Dave? No, mate. No, Muppet. Sorry, mate. Okay, so that's the end of the questions. I hope you liked that question and answer segment. The next question and answer segment, I think, I'm not sure what I'm writing next. I think a Triumph 900, but stand by for that.